the UFC 229 fallout, Bingbing's tax evasion, the Mandalorian, and in a Patreon exclusive, I have 2 topics for you this week: Trump versus the reporter, and the Kavanaugh confirmation. I have a lot to complain about, so let's do this.
The recently canceled podcast with Jon Favreau.
Hey, how goes it? So, I've had some activities come up Saturday that I thought warranted me waiting until maybe a little later in Sunday to do the podcast. I hope you guys don't mind, the 3 of you listening or watching. Sure would enjoy it if you guys would hit that Patreon. $1 a month gets you full access to the recently canceled podcast. All of the juicy topics that I know YouTube doesn't want on their platform. Man, I tell you what, this past week I've had some vandalism in the street. Got people writing dicks in the curb. They look kind of like mushrooms. They kind of have them like pointing down in a way like that. And I hit it with some like Gooby gun, some paintbrush cleaner, various things. And it kind of just looks like the rain's doing the work for me. Somebody also tagged a mailbox. Now, at my street, we don't each have a mailbox. We have 2 mailboxes on the street with slots for the different houses. And then we have like these big slots at the bottom where they give you a key in your slot, and then you take the key and you put it at the one on the bottom, and then you got your stuff from Amazon down there. And it works out okay. I mean, it's really not a bad setup. You get something from Amazon, comes in the mail. Hell, better than leaving it for the porch pirates, right? So, really, I can't complain about that. I just think it's kind of a shame we have some punk-ass kids come by and try to vandalize stuff. But even worse, they broke into a house a couple houses down from me. And this was told to me by my neighbor, who has 2 little daughters. And he said that this break-in occurred at this house that it runs as like a daycare. Kind of like in my area, some people run a daycare from their house. I know. Well, someone broke in, I guess they vandalized the inside of the place, doused the roof on gasoline, threw a Molotov cocktail at it, and that the firefighters arrived and came and put it out. I don't know where the hell I was when this went down, but I didn't see any of that shit. I guess everybody now has like a ring security system, all this shit. Yeah, I mean, just get the sign. You don't need to pay for this. It just says the sign says, look, we have a security system and we'll shoot you. I mean, that's good enough, right? My house, not so much anything. We have firearms and knives, stabbing weapons, and I'm kind of looking forward to some excitement. The excitement of sorts you found on UFC 229. So last night we had this event go down in Las Vegas, Nevada, and it got a little political in an odd way. I guess UFC rallies behind Trump. Their viewers may be on the Trump train. They don't seem to be shying away from it anymore. You had Dana White at the Republican convention, 2016, about 2 years ago. And now you have this guy, Nick Lentz, says, shout out to my homie Brett Kavanaugh when he wins. You got this other guy, he won by a furious knockout. Derek Lewis says Trump called him and said he needed to knock out this Russian mofo and all this because they're writing bad stories about him. So Donald probably didn't use the same language, but I would not put it past Donald Trump calling up a UFC guy and wishing him luck in this kind of way. Hey, you got to knock that guy out. And it worked. Pep talk from the Donald inspired him, perhaps. And then we go on to the main event here. Khabib, don't know how to pronounce your last name, versus Conor McGregor. So we had this, what was it, like T-Mobile Arena or some shit, filled up with Irish fans and Russian fans. And the fight was an odd fight because you had Conor McGregor is a stand-up fighter. This guy Khabib, I guess he's a submission artist. He shoots for the submission early, and they kind of just pins Conor against the wall of the octagon. He's sitting there by the fence. And it's an effort to put him in leg locks and try to wear him out, but Conor wasn't taking the bait, and so they just kind of sat there. And then later on, next round, it becomes a stand-up fight. And Conor takes some pretty vicious hits to the face. I mean, he bounces back from it, and he really doesn't show a lot of promise here, to be honest with you. It's a bit A bit weird, I mean, to think that this guy who has $85 million net worth from a boxing match, largely, wants to continue with this, right? Well, you know, where the guys are making peanuts in the UFC. Well, eventually, it was like round 4. Khabib gets Conor on the ground. He's working the head. He's trying to go for some kind of chokehold. He can't quite get there. He's got his arm around Conor's chin, but Conor taps out. Well, Khabib ain't done with that shit. He then grunk spikes his mouthpiece, gestures over to Conor's team. I guess Conor has a coach that has a tiff with him. Jumps over the octagon, which may be, 6 or 7 feet high. It's not way up there. Hell, surely it's 7 feet. I mean, yeah, okay. Well, he jumps over the barrier, has at it with this guy. Bravo to the police on the scene who broke this up before it became a new Malice in the Palace. And then a guy from his team jumps over the barrier, sucker punches Conor. Now, I'm guessing there's going to be some suspensions doled out for this. It's announced by, Bruce Buffer, fighting out of the, So it's announced by him that this guy retains his title. They don't put the belt on him. They're concerned it would incite a riot. And on some ends of the arena, I guess people are getting along. Russians fans, the Irish fans are, taking selfies together. On another side, brawl at the Shake Shack. I don't know who was in what colors here. Were the guys dressed in black security, or were they the Russians? I don't know, but it looked like they were in the fight. So this goes down, and it's a bad look for the UFC. On the same night when you have these guys rallying behind Trump, you now have your toxic masculinity just coming in. You know that this is going to be the talk of it. The women are going to be, oh, look at this UFC. It says these women hating Trump supporters, and look, they can't control it. Look how angry the right is, all this shit. Hell, a lot of the stuff going down at the end here doesn't even involve Americans. They ain't voting for Donald. They ain't voting for your lady. Now, Conor McGregor says at the end of the fight there, he's looking forward to the rematch. Guys, I think this is the last we saw of Conor McGregor in the UFC. I'm not saying all in all. I'm just saying in the UFC. Here's why. The payout's peanuts for what you're doing. Win or lose, the beating you are taking in this is severe and pays a 10th or 100th of actual boxing for somebody competing with similar skills and bravado. It just feels like this is out of place. They're not champing for like a 50% revenue share the way NBA, NFL, these kind of leagues go. They don't, at UFC, they don't have like a, what is it? The players union. They don't have a fighters union. They don't have this kind of pull. They can't issue a boycott. And UFC will just pick up whoever they can and put them out there. And, oh, well, they're a pro. Whatever, blah, blah. They're hungry enough that they're doing it. It's odd to think that you could get enough starving nations together to be able to support the UFC. They always find people from these starving nations who can fight, put them up in here. It makes it difficult for any of these white American guys to really ask for a pay raise, doesn't it? Well, if Conor McGregor has a net worth of $85 million, most of it from a boxing match which he lost, why does he need to come back here? I mean, he was suspended and he stripped the title, who knows? These sort of things go down and more time gets added between fights. Somebody else has risen up to the ranks and they're going to get a go at this Khabib guy. And maybe Khabib won't be the champion anymore. I don't think Conor McGregor is entitled to a championship match in his next match at this point. It's kind of been a while since he's been at the top, hadn't it? Some of this Conor doesn't quite make sense to me. Now, I look at the winners in the UFC. It's not really you. Yeah, you built up your following and you made money in boxing against Floyd Mayweather. Joe Rogan, who, by the way, is doing this single white female shit with Dana White. He's even cut down his eyebrows now, so now he's fattened up, he's bald. His voice is sounding like him. Joe Rogan wants to become Dana White. You've heard it here first, folks. It's creepy as shit. Dana White should be concerned. Joe Rogan's involvement in the UFC since 95, 96. His long-term alliance here is, and especially as UFC has become more popular and more part of the zeitgeist, has made him more relevant. Joe Rogan isn't just some guy who tried to take over the Man Show from Adam Carolla. He's now a guy with the #1 podcast, and Adam Carolla begrudgingly isn't willing to admit it. But here are some facts, and no, I'm not pulling up the actual numbers. Joe Rogan has 10 times the ratings written in on iTunes. Joe Rogan had Elon Musk smoke a joint on his show, made world news. World news has not been made on Adam Carolla's podcast at all. Adam Carolla, in an effort to try to appease his, whoever he's in team with or his advertisers, he has split the episodes to the point that you have to download 2 episodes to get 1 episode of the podcast, and thus artificially inflate his listener numbers. Now, I'm not saying Joe Rogan's a great host at a podcast. In fact, he's shit. He's not particularly funny. He doesn't have bits. He doesn't have a radio thing going for him. Adam Carolla's supporting crew, particularly Bald Brian, to some extent Gina Grad, they're the ones who are really making the show instead of just some pathetic guy in his basement talking. Kind of like what I'm doing here. Joe Rogan doesn't have the players on his side. He has some guys on staff who are not good in front of the mic. But he gets A-listers. He gets people who are big to come by, and shit goes down. Him, Dana White, the guy who him and his brother sold UFC some months back for a bunch of money. But he's retaining his president role and all this shit. He's a winner at the UFC. The guys fighting are not. And I don't think that they're going to be able to really make the push to get more money. Oh, hey, you got a bonus for fighting. What, a bonus for fighting hard? If you showed up and you qualified and the fight lasted a bit, do we need to talk about bonus here? They don't talk about the playoff bonus in the NFL like it's a thing, but I guarantee it's as much as what these guys are getting. So, yeah, Conor McGregor, he's going to be walking away from the UFC. I wouldn't be surprised if he showed up in boxing, realizing that he has a draw there, despite not winning. He could get another match going and make way more money in that fight than he could for, 3, 4 UFC fights? I mean, it's a possibility here. So, rematch? I don't think it's going to happen. As for our champion, Khabib, he didn't get the belt put on him in the octagon, and he may not be able to retain this. He could get suspended by the Nevada Gaming Commission. That doesn't mean it's impossible for him to fight somewhere else. But the UFC, surely they can't condone this kind of behavior. This, like I said, it's a terrible look for them, and they're going to have to take some steps. Does this mean a taller octagon? Does this mean putting a roof on the octagon? I wouldn't rule it out, and I think these are changes that could occur as next as UFC 230. Yeah, I realize they put a lot of these together quickly, but they've got to look at the safety of the crowd, the safety of the fighters, etc. In other news, we have Fan Bingbing, missing Chinese actress, the biggest name in movies in China, well, as far as females go. This is the Angelina Jolie, the chick from the Hunger Games, forgot her name just now, Jennifer Lawrence, combined. She's the biggest deal in China, and she's kind of cute. Well, no one had seen her. Where'd she go? I think she was missing for months. People just didn't know where she was. There didn't seem to be a huge concern over it. It wasn't being treated as a missing persons type thing. Then it's revealed that she had some tax issues. So maybe she was trying to flee the state over some tax crimes. I'm not totally sure about this. There seems to be something in the dark here. You know, China, you just kind of go missing in China, hey? You know, we have authoritarian rule over there. It's a communist country, but we have movie stars, and it's a big movie market. So what are we going to do with our big movie star cheating on taxes? Well, a smaller movie star, Wesley Snipes, one of the bigger black actors of his day, the one that my dad thinks should have been the lead in Independence Day, and pretty much anything Will Smith's in would have been better with Wesley Snipes, so he says. He cheated the U.S. government out of $7 million in taxes, and he went to jail for, I think it was a good deal of time. It might have been 5 years. Like, actual went to prison. We had Mike, the Situation, over on Jersey Shore. He just got sentenced to some jail time. It's like, was it 6 to 8 months, something like this? Like, actual jail time. I think it was a good deal less than $7 million. I think it might have been like $125,000, something like this. Fun Bingbing. Hold my beer. $139 million. That's USD in unpaid taxes. Now, what is their tax bracket for movie stars in China? I don't know. Is it like, hey, 80% has to go to the state? Quite possibly. I mean, this is a gal probably looking to defect or some shit. She's been in American films. She was in the X-Men Days of Future Past, I think it was. Played Blink. I think so, yeah. I mean, if she goes to jail, doesn't that bring in less revenue for the state? Because they need her out there making movies? If she's a driving force behind these movies making money? I don't know what's going to happen here. I don't think she's actually going to get in prison. I think there'll be some kind of deal here. Man, it's hard to think. I looked up her net worth. It says net worth $100 million. Her net worth is less than she owes in how? Oh, I'm sorry. You owe more taxes than you can make. Well, how is that even possible? Unless you're Von Fry. Then we have this announcement. A couple of things come out. Jon Favreau has been tasked with creating a Disney streaming service exclusive Star Wars show. They talk about it being his series, and I'm like, well, where are we defining a series here? Is he getting a prequel trilogy, or I mean, is he in charge of the next thing? It doesn't make sense for Jon Favreau to be doing this when he's consistently making big bank with the exploitation of the Disney properties into live-action CGI fests, making like $1 billion here, $1 billion there. It doesn't make sense to me that he would be put in charge of a series, but Disney wants their own streaming thing. How many streaming services is the average American going to have to buy that they can't afford? Because this is nuts. They realize that the geeks have to watch all the shit, and they're going to pay into a streaming service just because one property is on it that they like. Oh, hey, are you a Star Trek fan? Well, I guess you have to buy CBS All Access. No questions asked. You have to do it. You don't have a choice. Screw you. Disney's like, shit. They're gonna get people to sign up for a service with just Star Trek. We're going to use Star Wars. And now people have to buy our service. You have to. You're a Star Wars fan. You don't have a choice. You have to prove yourself to the fandom. So that's going down. Now we have the Mandalorian. Did I call it Mandarin earlier? Shit. Hell, Jon Favreau was in Iron Man 3. So the Mandalorian appears to follow, and there was one production shot from the scene release, whatever. It's somebody in Boba Fett-like armor. Does this mean they're a bounty hunter? There seems to be this assumption that they are. I don't know what a Mandalorian is. I'm assuming it's a race of alien or people, but Jango Fett takes helmet off, looks like human, although from New Zealand, and shit, that sounded racist. Now, does that make him not a human, like the, say, Anakin Skywalker, Padme, Luke, Leia, Han? What does that mean? Or is this his tribe? Is everybody in the tribe a bounty hunter? Are they a collective? Are they a syndicate of bounty hunters? And so Boba Fett, Jango Fett have that armor because it's tribal custom. And is that the assumption here, that we get that this is a bounty hunter? It looks like this will be more removed from the Force. Grittier Star Wars. Maybe we're going to throw in an F-bomb, like Star Trek Discovery. Yeah. There's going to be alien boobs. Boobs. Yeah. On a Disney streaming service, I find it kind of doubtful. I think that the saucier Disney content from whoever they acquire it is going to be at Hulu. And even then, it's like, look, how do we decide what goes to Disney Stream and what goes to Hulu? Whatever will drive people to the one that makes us the most money, Disney Streaming, that's going to get the A content. Don't look at Disney making exclusive Hulu stuff that's going to be worth a damn. You heard it here first, folks. All right, so that's going to do it for the free version of the Recently Canceled podcast, episode 31. To check out the next 2 topics, you're going to have to head over to Patreon and download the podcast there. It's $1 a month. $1 a month. That's way cheaper than whatever Disney's going to charge for their streaming. Okay? And it goes towards a good cause. This asshole right here.